For the next part of the color correction, you are going to use this curves adjustment layer photo. I do want to show you another way that you can open this in Photoshop. I showed you before that you could drag it into Photoshop, but you can also, if you hold down your control key, you can choose open with, and then it gives you any of the programs on the computer that it is able to open with. So we're going to choose Photoshop, and then it'll open there. All right, so what we have here is a photo of a little girl, and it's, again, it's not a bad photo. It's a close-up of her face, but the color quality is a little bit off. So what we want to do is we want to do a couple of things. We're going to first look at what's called the histogram, and you probably have to go to Window and Histogram. Remember that all of your panels are here under your window menu. And here is my histogram. And basically what my histogram is showing me is that all of my colors are out of balance here. So this is showing me my my reds, greens, blues, etc., etc. And I can look and see here is the reds, here's the blue. I believe this one must be the green, even, oh no, sorry, red, green, blue. So you can see that up here in that view. I'm going to go back to the compact view, or actually I'll show you the expanded view. There we go, and then the compact view. All right, so it shows you that they're out of balance. And what we want to do is we want to use the threshold and the curves, which I'll show you in a minute, so that we can adjust the shadows, which are the darkest points in the photo, the highlights, which are the whitest points in the photo, and the midtones, which is somewhere in the middle, or your neutral colors. Now, first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come here under the image menu and go into adjustments, and we're going to go to threshold. Now, don't be shocked when you see what the threshold does. The threshold, basically what it does is it can convert a grayscale or a color image into a high contrast black and white image. So if you look here, that's what you have, high contrast. And remember that the word contrast basically is meaning opposite. Okay, so the black and white are opposite. Now you can specify a certain level as a threshold. All pixels that are lighter than that threshold are then converted to white, and all pixels that are darker are converted to black. Now, this threshold command is also useful for determining the lightest and darkest areas of an image, and that's what we are using it for. So right here, our threshold starts off in the middle. But if we drag our threshold over to the left, notice how everything is getting whiter, and it's leaving us just with the darkest points, darkest spots in the image. Now, if we look here, we can see that in the eyes, and then back here there was a little fence, and these are our darkest places. So we want to hold down the Shift key, and when I hold down the Shift key, look and see how that little cursor changes. If I click here on one of these black points, it puts a little marker there for us. And it's putting a marker there so that we can remember where that point is. Now, I'm going to drag my threshold over to the right, and you can see how everything gets darker. Okay? And as we get close to having nothing left, we have a couple of places that we can look at. Notice how we have her hair up here. We also have the white of her shirt down here. If we go all the way over, they pretty much start to disappear at the same time. I'm going to go ahead and shift click and use the white of her shirt, and that gives me a second marker. Now, instead of clicking OK on this, I'm actually going to hit cancel, because I don't want our picture to stay like this. I just want those two markers there. So if I hit cancel, you don't see anything at the moment. That's okay. But this is where we're going to go into the next part, which is our curves. Now, when we adjust using our curves, Basically what we're doing is we're adjusting points throughout the image's tonal range. And remember the word tone when we talked about autotone. Okay, so we're not using autotone, but we do need to add what is called a curves adjustment layer. If I come down here to the bottom of the layers panel, notice that there's a little two-sided circle, and if we click on it, these are all the different possibilities for an adjustment layer. I'm going to go ahead and find curves and click on that. All right, now if we look at this, the properties of this curves panel that popped up, the curves adjustment layer that popped up, I do want to point out that while we're adjusting this image, the upper right area of the graph, right up here, represents the highlights, and the lower left represents the shadows. Okay, so the light places up here, the dark places down here. And then this horizontal axis of the graph represents the input levels. All right, so look over here on the left. We have the shadows. So I'm going to click on that so that we could sample the dark points. Now, as I did that, notice that my two little markers just appeared. So I'm going to go ahead and click over here in this black area. And notice how the image changed. Notice also how this little graph changed here. All right, now the middle one is the midpoint, or the midtones. So I'm going to skip that, and I'm going to come down here to set the white point. And I'm going to go ahead and click right here. Now, can you see what that did with the image? Okay, so we just went from a very gray, something with a lot of blue overtones, to where you can actually see the blue in her eyes, you can see the blonde of her hair. The image has lightened up immensely. Okay, now the third one we're going to do, it says when we hover over it, notice it says sample in the image to set a gray point. Now, sometimes this works well, other times it does not work quite as well. But notice that you have down here some gray area on the cement. So we can try this and see if we can set a midpoint. And when I do that, it turns really, really bright. I don't know if I like that. So I'm going to Command Z to undo. And I'm going to try another little point because we have some kind of neutral area right down here next to this gray cement. That looks a little bit better. I'm going to try one more. Notice that there's like some dead leaves up here in the trees. And I think that got rid of kind of some of the color that we wanted. So I'm going to go ahead and use this area down here. Okay? And that's going to be the midpoint. Now, again, by using this, notice how this is on a layer all on its own. Okay, so if I hide this layer, I can see the original. It's still there. It hasn't been destroyed. It hasn't been altered in any way. And then I can look at the layer that has the adjustments on it, and I can see how that is. And of course, if I like it, I can continue with that. If I don't like it, I could either delete this layer by dragging it to the trash can and starting over, or notice here also, I can actually drag these lines that are in, whoops, not that line though. Here it is, down here, the point. Notice how I can drag, okay, and I can adjust different parts of it if I want to, if I feel that helps, okay. I don't actually want to, so I'm going to Command Z so it goes back to the original point. And here I am ready to save. So I'm going to do a File Save As. Remember that you need to go to Schools and find your Photoshop folder. Once you find your Photoshop folder, you're going to see that it's already been named Curves Adjustment Layer. You're just going to add your period number, underscore, and then your last name, underscore, before the file name. Remember, the first one is going to be a Photoshop file so that you know that you can go back and edit it at any time. Hit Save and OK. And then you can go to File, Save As, and change the format to a JPEG. And save. Now, before you go on to the next one, you are going to use this same photo, so you can keep it open. But I want you to go ahead and open your color correction from Poland and open your Photoshop folder, which is in Schools. And you see these two, Curves Adjustment Layer and Auto Correction. These are the two originals, and I want you to go ahead and drag a copy into your Photoshop folder so that you have those for the next step. Okay?